What's good, YouTube? Or Storm here, coming at you guys another video today. I'll be bringing you guys a Sky Striker deck profile. This is the first time on the channel, however. This deck has been around for almost a year, but I'm pretty happy with this build. I think it's in a good enough spot to go ahead and bring you guys. So I'll go ahead, and I'm going to be going over the side deck as well for you guys. Since this is more of a meta-oriented deck, I feel like it was a good idea to go ahead and bring that. We'll go ahead and get to it straight away. Of course, any Sky Striker deck is going to have 3 copies of Raye. I think, you know, obviously this is the heart and soul of the deck, especially with Hornet Drones Limited. You want to see this card first turn every time. Basically, just 2 effects. You contribute yourself into special summon 1 Sky Striker Ace monster to your extra monster zone. That's important. You can't summon it to a main monster zone. Don't do that. And she also has an effect engraved to float if one of your Sky Striker Link monsters leaves the field by an opponent's card effect. So that also counts things like evenly matched as well, and especially with a new Link monster, it's not a terrible thing to do if you're under something like Shared Ride. Just a normal summon Raye, then tag into Kaina, because it stops your opponent from one of their monsters from attacking, which is pretty good. Then for the rest of the monster lineup, of course, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Effect Veiler, and 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. You guys have seen my Mech 9 Invoked deck profile, and this is the exact same hand trap ratio. I've really been liking it. But I think Ghost Ogre's in an even better spot right now, because if you look at the Orcus combo decks, for example, a well-timed Ghost Ogre completely kills the combo, which is great. Things like Summon Sorceress really eat the combo. Galetta, Ghost Ogre and Galetta can end the entire combo. There's a lot more valid targets for Ghost Ogre than there were before. There's also a Guard Dragon LP that's a good target for Ghost Ogre as well. And I'm honestly considering bumping it to 3 and maybe sliding Veilers over to the side. But Veiler, I feel like, is still in a pretty dang good spot. It bypasses, you know, chain blocking, which is relevant against decks like Soundland Greats, because they have, if they make the Link 1 will search, then they'll trigger Gazelle in hand. Effect Veiler doesn't care, it bypasses that, which is pretty good. Ash Blossom is great. It works really well against the Soundland Great Gazelle, the one that Foolish Burials targets. Which is really, really good. Effect Veiler, you know, it also works as well on that. I feel like it's a pretty solid lineup, but you guys can let me know in the comment section below how you feel about it. And of course, because this is a Sky Striker deck, we play a lot of different spells. Of course, you know, we have 3 copies of Sky Striker Mobilize Engage, along with the 3 copies of Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor. These are the best cards in the deck. Can't really play that without 3 and 3. Amazing search card. Search your entire deck, including monsters, including Raye, and draw a card if you have 3 spells engraved. Fantastic. Widow Anchor is both defensive as well as using it offensively to break boards. It's fantastic. It's negation, and it can, if you have 3 spells engraved, you take the monster. Really fantastic cards. Important to know though, of course, if you guys are unfamiliar, all the Sky Striker Ace spells require you to have no monsters in the main monster in order to be activated. So important thing to point that out if you run into a Sky Striker player, that they cannot do that. At least with most of the cards. And then we have 2 copies of Sky Striker Mecha Modules Multi-Rolls. So with this card, if you're unfamiliar with how it works, basically has an effect to send 1 card you control and to basically turn all of your Sky Striker spells into spell speed 4, meaning your opponent cannot respond to them. What this means is that if this goes off, basically your opponent has to answer this the minute it's slapped on the board. And it can be really, really ridiculous, and I ended up bumping it down to 2 to make room for other cards, but I'm actually considering playing 3 just because of how ridiculous the card is. Being able to turn your Sky Striker Ace spells into spell speed 4 is fantastic. The other thing it can do is if you're going to game 2 and 3 and you have a Link monster out, you can actually multi-roll away the Link monster to prevent yourself from getting Kaiju'd, which keeps your spells alive, which is fantastic. And it works really well with a field spell, getting you extra copies of Raye. It also has a secondary effect. Basically, during the end phase, you can set Sky Striker Ace spells, Sky Striker spells from your graveyard equal to the number of spells you activated this turn. It's during every end phase. So the longer, if this sits on the board anything more than 2 turns, you're going to be slow rolling so much advantage. Your opponent will not be able to come back. Pretty dang good. We have 2 copies of Eagle Booster. I feel like Eagle Booster has gotten, you know, it's always been my favorite Sky Striker spell, and that really hasn't changed. And especially with the new PK rank up, the fact that you can chain Eagle Booster to their monster to prevent the rank up from resolving is absolutely amazing. It's great for using in that purpose. But on top of that, it keeps your Link monsters from being disrupted by things like, Kagari is something that can be disrupted by some things like Effect Failure. You can Ash Blossom your Shizuku on end phase. It's got some pretty decent applications. I also like the fact that it allows you to push with bigger and when you get into your bigger Link plays. This allows you to make sure those Link monster effects resolve, which is really good. And for the final 2 of Sky Striker's spell, we have 2 copies of Area Zero. I have seen people play more than 2 of this card. I think they're absolutely insane. If you're familiar with what it does, much like multi-roll, targets a other card you control. You excavate the top 3 cards, and if one of them is Sky Striker's spell, you send it to the grave. Otherwise, the card stays on the board. So the problem with the card is it has a chance to fizzle, which I don't like, and it gets really close. It's not a card you ever really want to have your hand at more than 1. So I think 2 is the correct number for the card. It also has an effect when it's sent from the field zone to the graveyard. You can summon a Ray from your deck. Pretty dang good. And that affects hard ones pretty dang good. Can be a little unclog some hands, be pretty good for deck thinning, and it's extra copies of Ray, so why wouldn't you run it? Then for the 1-0s, we have the 1 copy Afterburner, the 1 copy Jamming Waves, the 1 copy of Short Cannon, and the 1 copy of Hornet Drones. These are pretty self-explanatory. Jamming Waves is always the one I'm debating, because I do like the card having surgical outs, but this could probably be maybe one of the cards I would swap out for maybe some Solemn Strikes, which are currently in my side deck. Spoiler, Afterburners is a fantastic card, but I've never really found the need for more than 1. Shark Cannon is really good, but you don't want to have it in your opening hand, because most of the time you want to be either using it on your opponent, you want to search it out and set it, or use it turn 2 to 3 to grab cards from your opponent's graveyard. And Hornet Drones is just absolutely insane. It's a 1 card Link 2 on its own, and it's at 1 for a reason. Great card. I like it a lot. Then for the spells, we have 3 copies of other spells. With support spells, we have 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. While Thunder Dragons aren't quite as relevant as they were with some of the other decks like Orcus and Orcus running around, and decks like Crusadia Guard Dragon, I still think this is an absolute must in the deck. It's just extra deck thinning, gets Metal Feather Fusion in the grave, gets 2 spells immediately in grave, can get you out of situations where you really need to get to that engage so you can make your plays, really good. I think the card's fantastic. It can unbrick hands, it can and it just work, and never a time I'm happy to see it. Then 3 copies of Called by the Grave. So I was debating whether I wanted this in the main deck, but after testing I found that going first build with the combo decks that are running around tends to be the better direction to take the deck, because with more combo decks you want to build your deck to go first against those decks. That's where Called by the Grave comes in. It's also great in the mirror match because it snipes Ray out of the graveyard. It's great against Salomon Greats if it's timed correctly. It can snipe them out of the grave so they can't make plays. It's great against, it can be good against Thunder Dragons because it hits the one when they discard from hand, it hits that. Really good card. Not too much to say, but if you feel like you want to play Solemns instead of this, be my guest. Then probably one of the better spells I think in the format right now is 3 copies of Twin Twisters. I know, mismatching rarities, but Twin Twisters is probably one of the best spells in my opinion in the game right now. The format is fair, despite there being a lot of combo. There are a lot of decks that play a decent amount of back row between Guru Control, Salomon Greats, Altergeist to a lesser extent. All of these decks play a whole, and the mirror match of course, all of these decks play a whole lot of back row. That's where Twin Twisters comes in. And it is also a card you can pretty easily side out against decks that aren't very back row heavy, and you can possibly swap it, and you could toy around with things like Heavy Stormduster as well, but it's really up to you. I really like having it in there 3. Then for the 1-0s, with of course the 1 Rhoda to give us another copy of Ray, the 1 Metal Feather Fusion, the 1 Terraforming, the 1 Upstart. This is another slot I'm debating sliding, but having that extra spell engrave is great. Terraforming, I've seen most builds play 2, but I don't know if the field spell is quite good enough to play 2 of this card, but it's something I can work with, negotiate. Metal Feather Fusion is great in combination with the Foolish Burial Goods to put a couple spells in grave and then unbreak your hand by shuffling itself back. Then for the extra deck, we're going to go through the Sky Striker Link monsters first. We have the 3 copies of Kagari, 3 copies of Shizuku, 3 copies of Hayate, and the 1 copy of Kaina. So, most of these are pretty standard. I want to talk a little bit about Kaina though. So if you're unfamiliar with what this card does, it has 2 effects. Whenever she is special summoned, you can target a face monster your opponent controls, cannot attack until the end of your opponent's turn. So with this is essentially a block to stop OTKs. That's the main thing it's really good at. It's if you really don't have a whole lot of other plays, you tag into this, and it can prevent your opponent from smashing in the face of things like Sword Dragon. And it has a second effect that allows you to gain, I believe it's gain 100 life after a Sky Striker spell resolves, so it's good in time. You're gaining, you can gain new life. However, these are pretty standard ratios. Kagari is the best one because it allows you to recycle your grave. Shizuku allows you to get more resources during the end phase, which is great. Things like Twin Twisters, for example. Hayate allows you to get unbreak, clog your hand, and get some damage in time. And you will go. The reason you play 3 of these is because you have mirror matches, and the mirror matches are grindy as hell. So you will need every single one of these. I honestly don't feel like you need more than 1 Kaina, but that's my opinion. We do have 1 Link 1, but this is honestly the most debated slot, which is 1 copy of Clara Nuska. This is mostly here for Secret Village of Spellcasters, but from what I've been hearing, 1, Altergeist is not as good, and 2, Altergeist can't really afford to play Secret Village anymore. So this can be changed out for Triple Burst Dragon. It's a Link 3 with, I think it's up, left, and down arrows that when an effect is activated during the damage step, it can negate it. So it's mostly there for the mirrors to keep Raye from triggering and some other battle phase related effects. So you can replace Clara Nuska for that card. Then we have 2 Nightmares in the form of Nightmare Unicorn, Nightmare Phoenix. These just allow you to clear things out of the way. You can make Phoenix with 1 card, which is absurd. And it's one of my favorite things to do with decks like this is just use these cards to clear your opponent's field and then make incredible push with your big Link monsters. That's where these come in. You can make Phoenix on its own just with drones, and you can make Unicorn with just drones and another monster. Really, really fantastic. Really good cards. Then for the remainings, we have the 1 Bomber Dragon, the 1 Borolo Dragon. I think this will probably be a Bull Sword, but it can be pretty good in the mirror for keeping Raye from triggering. But I honestly think if I can make this, I could probably make Triple Burst, and it does basically the same thing. So Bomber Dragon, however, has been absolutely ridiculous in testing. There's so many ways to trigger it on your opponent's turn with things like Shark Cannon, Hornet Drones, for example, using multi-roll, resetting your grave. It can be an absolute blowout card against a lot of the combo heavy decks once you've baited a lot of their negations, which this deck can do pretty easily with all the removal cards it plays. I really think these cards are fantastic personally. Bull Load, I honestly think this will probably be a Bull Sword when I get one. Bomber Dragon, I think it's one of my favorite Link monsters, so part of the reason it's in here, but I think it's fantastic. Then for the side deck, we have 3 copies of Pankratops. I don't think I need to talk too much about how good this card is, especially with the new PK rank up. The way the PK rank up works is you have to activate it during the main phase, which means you get the chance to commit a play before your opponent flips up that rank up magic. So what you can do with Pankratops is summon it, and then when they chain their rank up, activate Pankratops to pop their Time Thief, and that will prevent the rank up from resolving. This also applies to things like like Dingirsu, for example, when we get if the PK rank up's still legal when we get Dark Neostorm. It applies to the Kali Yuga combo. If they have the rank up set, you special summon this, and they try to chain the rank up targeting the Rebellion. You chain this, pop the Rebellion, they don't get the summon. Really, really fantastic card for also in the mirror match for baiting things out. The fact that it removes itself is great as well, and it's a 2600 body, which is big because it gets over things like Dante. I can't really talk about how good that card is. It's fantastic. Then, of course, we have more hand traps in the form of 2 Artifact Lancia and 2 DD Crows. I'm going to be honest, I don't know where my 3rd Lancia is, but I think this card is an absolutely brutally good spot this format. Orcus needs to banish. Lancia prevents them from banishing. It's really good against decks that are playing evenly matched, for example. It hits Thunder Dragons as well. I can't really speak for how good the Lancia is this format. I'm iffy on DD Crow, honestly. I feel like these are just kind of, I wanted to use these, I haven't dusted them off in a while, but it does hit it can snipe Salamangreats out of the graveyard when timed correctly, and the fact that it can snipe spells and traps out means they don't get the counter trap, which is pretty good. But I do think that once I find my third Lancia and get some evenly matches, these are probably getting cut from the side deck. But I do feel like DD Crow's a pretty decent hand trap this format. Then for the other course, with me, Skyship without 3 copies, our Shared Ride. This card is absolutely ridiculous in the mirror match. If they don't have the Ash Blossom for this, they basically have to pass. Skystriker needs to search for basic plays, so if you flip Shared Ride and you have resources, they basically they're going to have no way to break your board. It also is pretty good against Thunder Dragons, although not quite as much because they don't have quite as many searches, but this prevents them from going into Titan and trying to break your board because they're going to have to give you a bunch of cards. Because in order to make Titan, typically they have to proc several searches. So it can be very good against Thunder Dragons, and it can also be okay against Salamangreats because they do cycle back from grave, but you aren't really dealing with the problem. So it's okay against Salamangreats, but it's mainly for the mirror match, and it's also for Thunder Dragons. Pretty decent card. Card that's also is really good against Salamangreats is this Floodgate here, which is there can only be one. So I've seen Skystriker players playing Summon Limit, and it's a pretty damn good card. I like this card though because the way it synergizes with the deck. If you're familiar with what it does, it's a lot like Goes in Match and Rivalry, except it only allows you to control one type of monster. So, which means, guess what? All the Salamangreats are Cybers. You're talking about Altergeist, so the Altergeist are Spellcaster types. You get the idea. So it's pretty darn good against, a lot of relevant decks. Thunder Dragons, guess what? All Thunder. So it does prevent you from tagging between the Skystriker Link monsters. That's where multi-roll and the field spell come in. You can simply send the Link monster with multi-roll and then just use Hornet Drone or use Hornet Drones, and then you can just make plays from there. It's a pretty ridiculous Floodgate, and you can also send it with multi-roll as well but it's just an insane Floodgate, I think, in Skystriker, and I think it's pretty darn good in the deck. We have 2 Solemn Strikes. I think these are probably going to come out for the evenly matches when I get them and maybe slide to the main deck. Solemn Strike, however, is in a pretty darn good spot. If you stop the initial Link summon of the Salamangreat deck, it does really slow them down. I found it's pretty darn good against Thunder Dragons and the mirror match as well. It covers a lot of different matchups you're going to run into this format, so I think it's pretty good. I think it's definitely worth main decking, but it's really up to you. So anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think of this deck profile down in the comment section below, and as always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Warstorm, signing out.